Welcome to Fight News Now Extra. My name is John Pollock, and we'll be diving into all of today's news and chatting with John Ramdian and Robin Black. Today's topics include a new Titan FC fight, a women's bout being pegged for Halifax, and a Canadian fighter calls it a career. 32-year-old Mark Bocek announced on Tuesday night that he is retiring from the sport. Bocek had his first pro fight in February of 2004 and joined the UFC in July of 2007, where his first bout with the promotion was with future champion Frankie Edgar. Bocek would put together an 8-5 run while with the UFC and had last fought in April, taking a split decision over Mike Della Torre in Quebec City. MMA Fighting is reporting that a fight between strawweights Paige VanZant and Kaylin Curran is currently being finalized for the UFC's debut into Halifax, Nova Scotia on October the 4th. VanZant was chosen to be part of Top 20, which is currently filming in Las Vegas, but was discovered that she was only 20 years old with the cutoff age at 21 due to alcohol being present in the house, and thus she was just given a UFC contract anyway. And Titan FC has a new main event for their August 22nd card in Fayetteville, North Carolina, after headliner Matt Riddle was injured and forced to withdraw from his 5-round bout with Ben Saunders. In to replace Riddle is 40-year-old veteran Jose Pelli Landi-Jons. The two will square off for the vacant welterweight title, with Ariel Helwani of MMAfighting.com first reporting the main event change. Welcome back. We've got John Ramdian and Robin Black here, and we will start off with the news from one Canadian, Mark Bocek, 32 years of age, announcing his retirement from the UFC. Maybe somewhat surprising the timing because he had that long layoff, missed all of 2013, came back in April out in Quebec City where me and Robin saw his fight with Mike Della Torre, and then just kind of announcing his retirement out of nowhere. Were you surprised at all, John?
I'm not actually surprised. He's 32 years of age, been in this game for a long, long time, not just mixed martial arts, but martial arts in general. So, this is quickly becoming a young man's sport, and 32 years of age, your body isn't holding up the way it should. I'm not surprised. You look at some of the guys that Bocek's fought, Jim Miller, he fought Frankie Edgar, fought Ben Henderson. So facing the upper echelon of mixed martial artists, that's his MO, and I think it's just, it's his body.
Yeah, people love Mark Bocek. Anyone who knows Mark Bocek loves the guy. We were hanging out with him at the Black Belt Hall of Fame dinner. He always gives you good insight. You look at a guy like Mark now, he's a great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and a great instructor. So, maybe he'll be doing some of that teaching. He really enjoys contributing some analysis and stuff. Hopefully we'll get him on the show. Hopefully we'll get him on the network a little bit. It's something he's really interested in doing. But you wonder, that life of a 10-year-long mixed martial artist, just kind of dipping your toe in the bottom of the top 10, really tough fights. What do you take out of that, and where do you go after that?
It's an interesting question for someone at that particular age where you dedicate so much to fighting, and people are always talking about having a plan B. If you want to really excel at this sport, you can't be diverting your attention with too many other areas, and then you come to that critical point in your career where suddenly what wasn't even possible before in a plan B, now you've got to put all your focus towards it. But I will share my favorite memory of Mark Bocek was weeks before UFC 129 at the Rogers Center, where we went to go do an interview with him and another Canadian fighter. The other Canadian fighter refused to talk to us for fear that our footage would end up at his opponent's camp. I think you guys both know who we're talking about. Not the greatest analyst either. And Mark Bocek, meanwhile, gave us all the time in the world, preparing for what would be Benson Henderson's UFC debut at the Rogers Center. And even in defeat, I would imagine that a pretty high career point for Mark Bocek fighting on that first Toronto card.
Exactly, and just the idea of getting to walk out in front of almost 60,000 people when, only a couple of years prior to that, the sport was illegal in Ontario. So I'm sure it's a memory that Mark Bocek will never, ever forget.
I think that was a key turning point for Mark, too. That was the top 5 level guy. Yeah. Yes, he fought Frankie Edgar earlier, who ended up being as high or even higher, but that was the turning point. He really got to get in there and feel it. He knew he was, at that level, but to really be able to beat a guy of that level, you realize where the ceiling is. My favorite Mark Bocek story, after I had my first fight, I got beat up really bad, had a cut in my eye, and broken nose and all that stuff, and Mark kind of put his arm around me at Extreme Couture and said, now you know. You know what it is now. You know that it really is 90% mental. And he kind of gave me that look and he left. And I suddenly realized, yeah, you do know. You watch it a million times, but until you've been in there with that kind of pressure, never mind 60,000 people, that's a whole light years of further pressure. And Mark Bocek was really good at handling it.
A story also that came out this past week, Jeremy Botter first reported it, that the California State Athletic Commission, they've kind of been put under the gun here through Nevada after Chael Sonnen. Now he's supposed to be competing at Metamoris, and now Nevada is saying that, hey, if you happen to take part in this, you are facing a fine of over $1 million here. And of course, the California State Athletic Commission doesn't govern Metamoris. It's a grappling event and therefore doesn't have to go by the rules and regulations of the commission. Do you feel that this is something that Chael Sonnen, I mean, what happens here essentially?
Well, apparently the word is, it was just in the wording of the paperwork, because they put Chael Sonnen's, I guess, his role down as a fighter. And the commission is like, wait, if he's going to fight, he's not allowed to. He's suspended. So, but instead of putting down competitor or grappler, now it just comes down to the wording. And the athletic commission says they'll fine Chael Sonnen $250,000 for every violation. So I think if he's
it's $1 million. Well, if you only had one violation, but I think he failed it for like 5 drugs, so it's a lot. But there is a heavyweight fighter, one of the great fighters ever. He goes by the name of the War Master. And I saw a thing that he put on, I think it was Facebook a couple of years ago. And he's like, one of my pet peeves is when I hear guys at jiu-jitsu tournaments say, how many fights did you have? You had no fights. You had 0 fights. If you didn't get punched in the face, it's not a fight. That's his opinion. That's not necessarily my opinion.
I think that's most, a lot
I
of
don't
MMA
know, man.
fighters'
Jiu-jitsu
opinions.
can be an ornery,
yes, it can.
vicious, violent sport. But by definition, I don't know if you call it a fight, and I don't know if a commission should really be able to stop a guy from competing in things that aren't
Did Hallett
the same.
Gracie, though, not really call their bluff with that comment that the only thing we're testing Chael is his skills? It was almost like, come at us. And now, if Metamoris now has to go through the commission and pay part of their gate receipts, I mean, Metamoris is suddenly
Could be in big trouble.
I mean, it's just added costs and added problems here that they've walked into. And maybe they should be under commission scrutiny.
I don't know. Chael wanted to fight it, and he got a lawyer, but all of a sudden you look, you go, man, that's a lot of money. I don't know what they're paying him, 10 or 15 or 20. I don't know. But it's going to, what? They were paying him $75,000? Yeah, get your lawyer, fight it. I don't know. But I don't think he'll be fighting.
That's all for us. Fight News Now Extra continues.